Hello, Mary Elizabeth. Can you hear me?
Hey Tito, I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you at all.
Okay, I'll rejoin.
Wait, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay,
That's
perfect.
a good one. Yeah.
Thank you.
The sad part.
Okay, Madam Mayor, we are live streaming and recording and ready to go whenever you are.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It is, I'm going to look at this clock over here. 5:53 p.m. on Tuesday, October 7th. And I now, 5:30, what did I say? Looking at the clock and I still got the wrong time. Yeah, I can't read analog. All right, birthday 3 on Tuesday, October 7th, 2025, and I now call to order the City of College Place City Council Workshop. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Lopez,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Espinoza,
Present?
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
Councilmember Williams,
Present.
Councilmember Boyle,
Present.
and Councilmember Sherman has asked for her absence to be excused. We do have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, it's now time for public comment. Mary Elizabeth, did anyone submit a written comment in advance or request to speak via telephone or virtually?
No, ma'am.
All right. So if there's anyone in council chambers who would like to speak during the public comment period regarding an item that is not on today's agenda, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to workshop topics then. There's 6 topics on the agenda for tonight. First, I have the pleasure of delivering a proclamation requested by Walla Walla YMCA's Jan Asher Dolph in support of Domestic Violence Action Month. City of College Place Proclamation, Office of the Mayor. Whereas women and girls often face interlocking and compounding social barriers such as racism, sexism, and gender-based violence, which harms their ability to thrive. And whereas violence against women affects the lives of countless women and their families across the United States, with 1 in 4 experiencing severe domestic violence and nearly 3 women murdered each day by their current or former partner in communities across the country. And whereas every 68 seconds, another American is sexually assaulted, and out of every 1,000 cases of rape, only 310 are reported, 50 lead to arrests, and only 28 lead to a felony conviction. And whereas financial abuse is experienced in up to 99% of domestic violence cases and occurs across the socioeconomic, educational, racial, and ethnic groups. And whereas immigrant women, women of color, women with disabilities, and LGBTQ communities face heightened risk of violence and greater barriers to legal remedies and supportive services due to factors such as limited English proficiency and language barriers, fear of deportation, limited access to higher education and job resources, higher risk of poverty, and limited resources for access to support and affordable childcare. And whereas while women are disproportionately impacted by domestic and sexual violence, men and boys, as well as people of all gender identities, also experience these harms and deserve recognition, support, and healing. Whereas well over half of the homeless women have lost housing because of violence committed against them. And over 50% of homeless mothers have experienced severe physical and/or sexual abuse during their lifetime. And whereas the citizens of this city will work to end the epidemic of gender-based violence and support families. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Norma L. Hernandez, Mayor of the City of College Place, Washington, do by proclaim October as Domestic Violence Action Month, given under my hand and seal as Mayor of the City of College Place, Washington, the 7th day of October. And I believe we have some guests here from the YMCA to receive the proclamation. Did you want to share anything with the council at all regarding? Regarding your request, you could press the button on the microphone till the light turns green. There you go.
Well, I just wanted to show you a sign for our Take Steps Against Domestic Violence Walk. We're having that on October 22 at noon. We meet at Heritage Square and then walk down Main Street to the courthouse where we gather and just have a few people say a few words and just reflect on how we would like to see this problem stopped.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And I have with me Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly Bush. I'm the Senior Director of Finance and Operations for YWCA. I'm happy to be here with Jan today.
And we have Karen with us too. She is a YWCA advocate and an advocate for Whitman College.
Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for coming. Can I come take a picture with you?
Yes. Like this in the background so that we can see the.
Oh, yes.
And then press the. Email it to you. All right, everybody on 3, say October. 1, 2, 3.
October.
All right, got it. Thanks, guys. Or do you want one with you too, or on your phone? Okay. Okay, on 3, say October again. 1, 2, 3.
October.
Thank you. And please help yourself.
All right, any of the council members that, I just wanted to check to make sure before I move on, if there was any statements you wanted to make? No? Okay. Well, next, I will deliver the Fire Prevention Week proclamation. City of College Place Proclamation, Office of the Mayor. Whereas the City of College Place is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting our city. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are located where people's are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas home fires killed more than 2,700 people in the United States in 2022, and fire departments in the United States responded to 360,000 home fires. And whereas roughly 3 out of 5 fire deaths happen in homes with either no smoke alarm or no working smoke alarms. And whereas smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported homes fires almost in half. Whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before people can, alerting them to danger in the event of fire, in which one may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely. And whereas College Place residents should install smoke alarms in every sleeping room, outside each sleeping area, and on every level of the home. And whereas College Place residents will make sure their smoke alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including with those with sensory or physical disabilities. And whereas College Place residents should test their smoke alarms at least once a month. And whereas College Place residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas College Place first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas College Place residents are responsive to the public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And now therefore be it resolved, I, Norma Hernandez, Mayor of the City of College Place, Washington, do hereby proclaim October 5th through the 11th as Fire Prevention Week throughout College Place. And I urge all of the people of College Place to make sure their homes have working smoke alarms and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of College Place's fire and emergency services. And I believe we have here our, what is your title?
Fire marshal.
Fire Marshal. Okay, Bruce, I'm here to receive the proclamation. I want to quickly share something. I lost my grandmother and my aunt, my dad's mother, and 13-year-old sister in a home fire. So I take this really to heart, the need for those safety measures. And I thank you for all the work you all do.
I appreciate your proclamation. We've been involved in a program called Safety Always Matters, and a group of us from Wall Fire, College Place, District 4 work together each fall to hit all of the classrooms, kindergarten through 5th grade. The only part of the county we don't reach is Burbank, but other than that,
Excellent.
we hit the whole county.
Understand that it's a very good. Maybe you can take a picture when they're not taking the proper prop care. In their home.
I have a question. Do we have a program in College Place at all where if there's a family that can't afford smoke alarms and or detectors that they can get them? Because I know they can be kind of costly.
We do. Actually, we have smoke detectors. I have a program where I get donations from Home Depot and Walmart, and we'll have those available. We also help those who are not able to change their own batteries. We'll go out and help them change them and so forth.
Do you come and do that at 3 a.m.? Because that's the only time they chirp.
Well, that's typically the time we get the call.
That's
Thank
good
you.
to know. We need to
Thank
be
you.
able to let people know that there's availability for both the alarms and assistance.
Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes people really shouldn't be on ladders, so we're glad to be there to make that change, so we're not there for another reason too.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I intentionally tested smoke alarm.
Oh, yes.
They were great.
Excellent. Okay, next we have Miss Abby Kushel. I think that's how you say her last name. Kushel is going to present the results of the municipal court evaluation. Ms. Kushel, there you are. All right, good evening. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. It's good to see you again. So thank you so much for having me this evening. My name is Abby Kushel, and I'm a principal court management consultant with the National Center for State Courts. And just a little bit about me, I've been with the National Center as a consultant for the last 3 years. Prior to that, I worked for the Minnesota Judiciary for 15 years in a variety of capacities. And I'm coming to you from Minnesota, so I live in rural northern Minnesota up near Canada, in a community very much similar in size to College Place. So I understand the nuances of rural communities and both the wonderful things about them as well as the challenges they face. So excited to share with you tonight an overview of the study that we completed, and allow you an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have prior to finalizing a report that we have drafted and provided to the city that following tonight's meeting, sometime in the next few weeks, we will get that finalized and sent out to you. So Mary Elizabeth, I believe, is going to share the screen, which is right in front of me. So you can go to the next slide. So just a little bit about the project as a whole. So the National Center does quite a bit of work in the state of Washington. So we very much understand the nuances of your judicial system, and we understand that cities under Washington municipalities bear the responsibility for providing criminal justice services for misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor offenses within the city. And that includes both the prosecution, indigent defense, adjudication, sentencing, and incarceration. So throughout my 3 years at the National Center, I think I've done about 6 projects in Washington, and about 3 of them specific to municipal courts, which I'll tell you a little bit about how this kind of project came to be on the next slide. So go ahead to the next slide, Mary Elizabeth. So in January of 2022, we actually conducted a very similar study in the city of Auburn. And I know that Auburn is much larger than College Place. It's on the opposite side of the state. But I think that is how the former city administrator, Mike Rizzatello, came to find out about this service that we provided. Is we actually worked with Auburn in 3 separate projects over about a 3-year time period. We just wrapped up the 3rd phase in May, studying the exact same thing, whether or not they should form their own independent municipal court, or if they should continue in the interlocal agreement that they had with King County. So the city of College Place, as we understand, had their own municipal court several years back. And in 2013, they disbanded that municipal court and decided to enter into an agreement with Walla Walla County District Court to provide those services for the city of College Place. So when we were asked to conduct this feasibility study and analysis, we were essentially looking at those 2 things. Answering those 2 questions. Should the city maintain their interlocal agreement with Walla Walla County District Court, or should they form their own municipal court? And I should indicate that the National Center is not here to say you should do one or the other. We are simply providing information to you as a leadership entity for the city to make that decision on your own. And we want to provide you with as much information as possible so you can make the best decision for your community. Next slide. So the last interlocal agreement that we reviewed as part of this project was the 2013 to 2023 interlocal agreement with Walla Walla County District Court. I believe that's the most recent one, and that's the most recent one we received. And that interlocal agreement indicates that if both parties decide by agreement, that they would mutually like to discontinue this relationship, they can do so at any time. If not, there are some parameters outlined in section 3.50.810 of the revised code of Washington. And what those indicate is if the city decides they would like to terminate this agreement with Walla Walla County District Court, they would need to provide written notice with their intent to terminate the agreement to the county not less than 1 year prior to February 1st of the year in which all district court judges are subject to election. And it's our understanding from that that section, the revised code, is that the termination by the city with the county can only be done at the end of a 4-year district court judicial term. And I believe that is ending at the end of 2026. So if College Place would make the decision to form their own municipal court, it would be in 2027, is my understanding. Now, on the flip side of that, if the county decides that they'd want to terminate providing services for College Place as part of this agreement, they need to provide that information to the city and the administrative office of the courts not less than 1 year prior to the expiration of the current agreement. All right, next slide. So just an overview of the study that we completed. So the first thing we did was looked at court data and data that was the interlocal agreement and information that was provided to us both from College Place and Walla Walla County District Court. And we reviewed state statutes, we reviewed revised codes, as all of that in kind of our initial steps in fact finding and gathering information. A colleague and I came to College Place in May of 2025, and we did a site visit and interviewed 12 stakeholders while we were on site for a few days. We had a beautiful visit in College Place, and thank you so much to the fire department who allowed us to use our facility to meet with all of the stakeholders that we met with. They were very accommodating to us, and we appreciate that. And we followed up with some virtual interviews that we'll talk more about shortly when we returned back to our communities following the on-site visit. The next phase of that was what we call a comparative court analysis, and we'll dive further into that. But we asked the city of College Place to identify some communities that had their own municipal court that may be of similar size, similar geographic area. We got what we could as far as comparison courts. We obviously didn't want to be comparing College Place to Seattle or Auburn or something of that size. We wanted to find as close to similar size as possible. And we reviewed a variety of things as part of that analysis. I have a court consultant who is also a CPA who did that financial analysis for us for the city of Auburn and also did for College Place. So he looked at case filings, he looked at staffing structures of those comparative communities, as well as the budgets of them that we'll dive into in a little bit, and did an analysis and compared those to College Place. So we are here tonight to provide an overview of the study that we did. And then, as I mentioned, we've drafted a very comprehensive report. It's about 70 pages for you that includes all of the data and information that will be available and will be finalizing following the meeting tonight. Next slide. So just a little background. One of the reasons that we were told of why College Place wanted to dive into this and look into this was some perceived dissatisfaction of the degree of accountability imposed by the court. So individuals were committing crimes repeatedly. We heard while we were on site that the two primary crimes that the law enforcement is dealing with and community members are dealing with is theft from your big box stores, so Walmart and Home Depot, as well as driving offenses. So driving after revocation or people that don't have their driver's license continuing to drive, and arresting and rearresting the same individuals over and over. And there were some stakeholders that really felt that maybe the court was not holding these individuals as accountable as they could be to kind of make some behavior changes. And this was very similar to the reasons why we did this study in Auburn as well. So we were familiar with individuals that had these kind of ideas or perceptions, and it was our job as a neutral party to really gather information and find out from people what that was all about. And what does that mean? What does that mean for your community? And to provide this information and report to you that we're doing tonight and in the follow-up report. So we were essentially looking at interviewing stakeholders and gathering information about, how do they feel the current municipal court operations are running? What are they hoping to see from municipal court operations, not only now and into the future? We are looking at financial information of what it would cost for the city of College Place to form their own municipal court in comparison to what they're paying Walla Walla County District Court right now. And then we also, throughout the report, identified if College Place would continue to engage with Walla Walla County District Court, what are some things that maybe could, some small changes that could be made that would improve efficiency in operations based on some of the things that we heard from those that we interviewed? Next slide. So again, I touched on this already a bit, but we looked at the interlocal agreement. We looked at case filings, financials, incarceration costs that were provided to us both by the city of College Place as well as Walla Walla County District Court. We looked at the state statutes concerning fees that municipalities that are charged to municipalities for court-related services. And then as we were going through that information, initially, we followed up with individuals both at the city as well as the county to ask further questions and to clarify the information that we received. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we were on site in May, and we interviewed 12 individuals over a period of 2 days, both from the city as well as the county. So you can see there, and then the next slide also outlines the specific individuals that we interviewed. So we really got a broad perspective. We had the pleasure of meeting with Mayor Hernandez. Chief Tomaros provided us with a lot of information, as did some of his officers that we met with, as well as Brian from the city of College Place and Marianne. And then when we engaged in this project with College Place, there was some changes in staff and contracts that you entered into with prosecutors. So we had the pleasure to meet the new city prosecutors that were just recently at the beginning of the year contracted with through the city. So we met with them. We met with Judge Hadid. We met with the court administrator from Walla Walla County District Court, as well as a couple of public defenders. And then following our on-site, there was a few individuals that were not available while we were on site. So I interviewed Associate Judge Hawkins, had the pleasure to interview Mr. Barker, the jail commander, as well as Miss Riley, the Walla Walla city attorney. So this gives you, we tried to get as broad of perspective as we could to, again, dive into how they felt municipal court operations were going. Some of them also were involved in the previous municipal court that was administered by the city. So they were able to give us some historical perspectives as well, which was very helpful. Next slide. So I wanted to just touch on some of the key things that that came out of the interviews that we had. And again, these will all be outlined in the report. But I can tell you overwhelmingly, all of the stakeholders interviewed were had very positive things to say about the collaborative relationships between the city and the district court. There was no bad blood per se. There was not a lot of conflict. There were maybe some differing opinions that we'll talk about in a bit, some kind of philosophical perspectives, but overall, everyone said people were great to work with. They were responsive when they had questions. So we also heard that there was some staff changes. So the staff that was responsible from the city of kind of overseeing court operations previously was no longer with the city, and that may have been a cause of frustration or some of the strained relationships in the past. But everyone interviewed was very excited about the future and the opportunity and felt that things were moving positively in the right direction. And we're looking forward to continuing to mend any past relationships that may have been a little bit tarnished and move forward and work to make municipal court the best that it could be. So overarching, that was a theme we heard from everybody. We broke our feedback into a variety of categories. So the first one I want to talk about is kind of judicial philosophy and courtroom management. So Some individuals we interviewed said, we very much are not, necessarily aligned with the judge's judicial philosophies and felt that to be quite lenient and liberal. While others said, while we understand that, we also understand, the political landscape in the state of Washington is often seen as very liberal. So it very much aligns with, what is likely happening throughout the rest of the state. And we also learned from many that, the eastern side of the state tends to be more conservative than the western side of the state. So we got to hear a lot about that. I will say that even individuals that said they didn't necessarily agree with the judicial philosophies and wanted some more accountability and perhaps some more jail time or cash bail implemented, they said that the judge was very much willing to meet with them whenever requested, was very much willing to have a conversation. So although the judicial philosophies and the philosophical approaches may not have aligned, the working relationship was still there, and they appreciated that. We also heard about some sentencing practices. So overwhelmingly, everyone was very supportive and wanted, College Place to be a safe community for everyone, and felt that for the most part it was. So that was good to hear. As I indicated before, some were wanting to send a message and change the behavior of those kind of what we would call frequent flyers in the judicial system that get arrested and rearrested regularly and try to change their behavior. And they felt that that could be done by putting some more accountability on them. As I mentioned, maybe some more jail time, as well as some cash bail implemented. But we also heard the opposite perspective, that perhaps those things would not change the behavior of this population, and things such as your community court or more rehabilitative options would be better for this population rather than the jail time. So we had kind of both sides of the both perspectives on this area. The next area I wanted to talk about was court operations and communications. So we heard that the court operations are working very well. We heard docket flow is very smooth. There is not a backlog in the court for municipal court services. Generally, cases are processed in a timely manner, and people were pleased with the way things were going. We did hear that currently College Place has municipal court every 2 weeks. Some felt that it could be done on a weekly basis, so they needed another docket or another session. And the court administrator and judges were very much willing to have those discussions, whether it be have on the off weeks, have some in custody calendars, or whether they needed to tack on some things to on another day of cases that needed to be seen right away. They were open to having those discussions and looking at ways to enhance the docket flow and add on additional dockets as needed. Again, but it would also be based on space and availability, which we heard was a concern from the current courthouse. The new, as I mentioned, we had the opportunity to meet with the new prosecutor and public defenders who were just recently contracted at the beginning of the year. They both indicated they had a very strong working relationship together, even in a few short months. And both the judge and court administrator all noticed that they are those two are working collaboratively to get cases resolved outside of court and move them along very quickly. So they were very impressed with the new prosecutor and public defender and their willingness to work together to resolve cases to improve case flow overall for the court. Communications, as I mentioned, very strong collaborative working relationships, and also had mentioned that in the past maybe that had not been the case, but it seemed like maybe that situation had resolved itself and everyone was kind of committed to moving forward and working together to make any changes that needed to be made for the betterment of the entire municipal court operations in the community. Facilities. So we heard about a little bit, or actually quite a bit, about facilities. And space limitations in the current courthouse were noted as a challenge. Probation has meetings that, probationary groups that meet that are often hard to find space for. If they do have trials, which we know doesn't happen very often, it's not the greatest setup for that type of case trial that needs to be held. And we also heard about the aging jail facility as well. So facilities was a concern for several of the stakeholders identified. And again, community court was very much all stakeholders were very complimentary of the community court and felt that approach of rehabilitation versus incarceration was very much in line with this population, and hooking people up with additional services could be a benefit to the population as well as the community. A few things noted in kind of what I would classify as the other category. So probation services were highlighted as something that was very high quality. Although the municipal court defendants typically are on informal probation, so it's very kind of light level probation. They're not as intensely monitored. We heard that the upcoming or the forthcoming statewide case management system could be a challenge for the courts. It's our understanding that the pilot program that was implemented to test the system did not go as originally intended. So some of the timelines have been delayed as far as implementation statewide. And lastly, if one of the things that was brought up is if the city would decide to establish its own independent municipal court again, jail and transport services would need to be addressed because the jail currently does not have the staff to be able to provide those services, even if the city was to pay them a fee. And the police department didn't feel that they would be able to do that. So that's something that would need to be explored kind of as a other category if the city decides to form the municipal court. All right, next slide. So now moving into the comparison cost analysis. So we asked the former city administrator, Mike Rizzatello, and Chief Tomaros of some possible communities. And we know that they're not identical matches, but we found the best ones that we could. So we sent requests to Sunnyside, Yakima, Gig Harbor, Othello, and Airway Heights. And we heard back from 3 of those 5. As you see there, we did not hear back from Othello and Airway Heights, but we heard back from Sunnyside, Yakima, and Gig Harbor. And we asked all of those courts for their case filings for the last 5 years, as well as their current staffing structure and their budgets for the last 5 years. So we did an analysis of that information. We also were able to gather some information from the Washington Court website, which has a wealth of information for the various communities. So we use that in our analysis as well. Next slide. So here is an overview of what the city of College Place is currently paying and has over the last 5 years to Walla Walla County through the current interlocal agreement. So you'll see in 2020, the city of College Place paid approximately $110,000 to on an annual basis for municipal court services. And you can see the numbers there. I won't read them all to you, but in 2024, that number has increased to $151,000 and some change. And then we estimated the 2025 amounts that would be paid based on the invoices that had been received to date. And we're estimating that College Place will pay approximately $188,000 to Walla Walla County District Court for municipal court services throughout the year. Next slide. So in looking at case filings analysis, you can see here, we know that Yakima is very much not a comparison as far as size to the other courts, particularly College Place. And you can see there that College Place and Gig Harbor are probably the most comparable when we look at infractions and misdemeanors, and you can see parking there on the right-hand side. We've seen that most of the comparison courts showed increases in their case filings in 2023 and 2024. And in 2025, with the exception of Sunnyside, we are anticipating a decline in case filings in infractions and misdemeanors kind of across the board. So I will say that even though they decline, we're anticipating a small decline in 2025. All of these case filings are above the case filings that happened during the pandemic, which were very low. So courts are kind of bouncing back from those pandemic years and, increasing from there. Next slide. So as I mentioned, I talked through all of this. College Place and College Place and Gig Harbor were the most similar. Sunnyside, College Place had about a third of the case filings as Sunnyside, and then obviously significantly smaller than Yakima. All right, next slide. So in looking at court staffing, you can see here on the chart that Gig Harbor and Sunnyside are somewhat similar. So both of them had less than 1.1 full-time judicial officer. So Gig Harbor had about a little over a quarter-time judicial officer, and Sunnyside had just over a half-time judicial officer. We have the Yakima numbers on there, but again, I don't think that's very much a comparison in size and in what College Place would look like. All of them had a full-time court administrator, and you can see there the court administration staff. So again, Gig Harbor and Sunnyside, 2 FTEs and 2.6 FTEs, and the total staff and judicial officers are in the last column of 3.88 and 3.65 respectively for Gig Harbor and Sunnyside. So we are anticipating our projection is that if College Place would establish their own municipal court, they would be at the low end of the staffing and pretty similar to Gig Harbor or even less than Gig Harbor. So you probably would need, a just over a quarter-time judicial officer as well as 3.6 staff, FTEs if you were to form your own municipal court. Next slide. So now we look at the budget information. You can see here, it's kind of all across the board, anywhere from in 2022, about 500,000 for Gig Harbor, or a little over $500,000, 536,000 for their total expenses, to 1.7 million in Yakima. We did see that Gig Harbor and Sunnyside had very similar expenditures, but the Gig Harbor expenses were rapidly began increasing in 2024, and we found that as was a result of their employee benefits line item. So I'm assuming they had significant insurance increases that contributed to that overall increase in their total expenses. But you can see there the wide variety in the salaries and benefits as well as the total expenses between the 3 courts. All right, next slide. So we put together, this is kind of what everyone is hoping to see. We put together an estimated cost overview and estimation of what we feel would be the cost for College Place to form their own independent municipal court. You will, if you recall a few slides back, we're anticipating your expenses in 2025 to college or to Walla Walla County District Court are going to be about $187,000. So next slide. So this is what we are estimating for independent operating municipal court administered by the city. So we use 2026 as kind of a baseline, and then understanding that in 2027 would be when the court would begin based on the termination of the existing interlocal agreement. So you can see there, and we projected it out to 2030. So you can see there in 2026, just under $690,000, increases up until 2030. It would be close to $1 million for operating your own municipal court. In addition to that, we would anticipate there would be startup expenses, and we outlined what some of those might be, furnitures and fixtures. You would need to get, IT, both hardware, software, if you need to do things on your website related to the court, as well as any facility redesign and remodeling, and then the hiring of court staff. So overall, we're looking at over $500,000 initially to start the court, and then over the next 5 years, the cost rising to about close to $950,000. So with that, I wanted to open it up to any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Abby. We appreciate it. So I'm gonna start with Councilmember Lopez. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I think more question for you guys. Is this a consideration or was it just a procedural response to a stakeholder's concern?
It was just researching to see if it was something that was feasible.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because we would have liked to have seen maybe perhaps a little bit more control of how things go through court.
Okay. I just have lots of questions, but I don't want to ask them if it's not something we're going to do or something that we're really seriously considering. So I don't know.
Well, we would need to find the money.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Is it even a possibility, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right. But ask the questions.
Okay, well, just curious, looking at the study, very well thought out. Thank you, Abby. My understanding is that, well, let me ask it differently. From your research and talking with all the different stakeholders, did you find a commonality between those frequent flyers that you're looking at that seem to be the issue? Is there a demographic? Is there, are they from College Place? Are they from other places? Is there things that they're stealing other than others? I know that back in 2021, we worked with Chief Tamaras and we worked on a program to kind of divert some of that, and I don't know if that's continuing, but anyhow, just curious what you found out.
Yeah, so anecdotally, we heard that, and I would defer to the chief as well, but anecdotally, what we heard was, it's a mixture of people kind of, because College Place and Walla Walla are so close, that it could be some Walla Walla residents, some College Place residents, but very much those individuals that are kind of reoffending and getting rearrested, much of that is related to substance use issues as well as mental health issues. And I think, obviously not looking at the data, but I think that we heard, the figure of probably 90 to 95% of those that frequent flyers, that is the underlying issue. Poverty also as well. And that would very much be in alignment with what we see across the country of reasons why people continue to commit these types of crimes.
Thank you. And then the county district court how is that priced? I mean, you gave us an estimate of what it's going to cost, but is that a fixed cost per case, or how does that work out?
So there's a formula that they use, and I would have to, we didn't meet with the finance director from Walla Walla County, but there's a formula they used based on, so they look at the operating expenses for the district court, and it's split into thirds based on percentages. So College Place, Walla Walla County, or the city of Walla Walla County, the city of Walla Walla, and then Walla Walla County. So it's kind of thirds, but it's not evenly, it's based on case filings. So if College Place had 10% of the case filings, then they would, be responsible for 10% of the operating expenses that are charged to as part of the interlocal agreement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I'm going to hold the other questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Cleveland.
As I'm recalling, we've heard reports again and again about the frequent flyers. And I think one of the things that led to this consideration of should we be doing this ourselves was we had a death in the community. And I'm certainly all for, holding people accountable and, reducing this kind of stuff. But we also don't have any guarantee that we could be, dropping an extra $500,000 into our own municipal court, providing more intense sentences, and we don't really see the results that we're hoping for. So that's a chunk of change for one, and two, we don't necessarily know that it's going to resolve the issue that we're seeing. And it's also costly to hold people. Ultimately, I want College Place to be a safe place. I don't want there to be crime here. I want people to feel safe. But it's I guess it's got quite a sticker shock on it. And we need to find the money someplace. I'm not sure how we do that. But no other comments or questions.
Councilmember Espinosa.
Yeah, thank you for the information. It's very enlightening to see the inner workings behind the scenes and the cost benefit analysis of how everything looks. I think that, you know, as a city, we want to be as independent as we can. But certainly we have to be good stewards of the funds, and looking at this study is an eye opener to really see what everything costs behind the scenes for sure. So I appreciate the data that you presented. It's very helpful for us to open up our eyes and see what that would cost. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, a couple questions. First, and Mayor, I may need your help and perhaps the chief. I thought that a while back we had put additional teeth into what would it be, the sentence part of it or the prosecution?
Oh,
Did
yes, when we approved an ordinance that that former city attorney Colwell had presented to us that, oh gosh,
did we
30 days.
we voted that?
Third offense, right?
That was voted.
Yep. Thank you, Chief Tamaris.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, Abby, great presentation. Thank you. So you're, the bottom line is if you are not prosecuting the first case, you're never going to get to that third case for that longer sentencing. I would say, and look, we everything we're looking at here, we have a list of pros and cons. And we won't know what that list of pros and cons are unless we do this study. And it does reveal a lot. I will say that the relationship we have with the Corps is very good. I have a very good working relationship with Judge Hedin. We do have some differences of opinions and philosophies. I will say that currently our new prosecutor, Mr. Rio, is exceeding expectations. And as a result of his work, they've had to add more dates to the docket. So I can tell you right now, we're spending a lot more money in jail fees than we have in years. We are well over budget this year for that, and as Mr. Carlton will tell you. So, which is showing me that there is increased accountability. So as we continue to look at this, we knew that this was going to be very expensive before we even started. And, but I think we really needed to have a detailed plan in place. If we really wanted to move in that direction, this is what it's going to take. And what is it going to be for our city? Do we want to make this a priority? Or are we going to continue to partner with district court and perhaps work on some of the things that we're not happy with and try to convince them to move in our direction a little bit? And kind of find a happy median. And if nothing else, I feel like this has prompted us to do that. And it's engaged that conversation really well. So does that answer your question?
So, no, yeah, thank you. But what we passed was, I mean, we were seeing things before that were goose eggs across.
Yeah.
It was 0 fines, 0 time, second offense, 0 fines, 0 time. I mean, I was shocked. And then we passed that. And I think we thought at that time that was kind of the cure-all. That isn't the cure-all, because if you don't get past gate 1, you don't, I mean, you're, yeah.
There's not a cure all for that. And it's you have
Well,
to start,
let me
you have
back
to
up.
start
I
at
said-
phase 1 before
Yeah.
you can get to that. And that wasn't even occurring.
Cure-all was the wrong word. What I'm saying is that there was no punishment before, basically.
Well, it wasn't that it was a punishment. It wasn't even taken to the courts in a way.
I don't know how much you want me to reveal.
I know.
That's okay. No, no.
otherwise.
There wasn't a lot of prosecution.
But when we passed
There
that,
was not a lot of a prosecution occurring.
it was presented to me, I think, the way I interpreted it, that was that this was something now there would be teeth in it. People would not come from out of town over here knowing that nothing would happen to them, that something could happen to them. But you're saying if it's not prosecuted at all, it doesn't really matter.
Correct.
Okay. So.
Yeah. In
But-
addition to people coming over for Walla Walla, we also have people coming up from Milton Free Water.
Yeah.
You know, we have a tremendous partnership with Walmart, but it does attract people from all over our community. And that makes us very busy.
Yeah.
And busy is good, but we want it to be the right busy. And sometimes it's not.
And you've had the impact of a Kmart that closed, a Shopko that closed. And so I'm guessing the business here over the last 3, 4, 5 years, it's hard to compare 1 year to a past year, I'm guessing, in activity and
Yeah, we've got a very good working relationship with Walmart. They've done amazing, they've made some amazing improvements to help minimize our calls through their loss prevention program. If you've been to Walmart recently, they check your receipts when you go out the door, similar to what Costco does, which has had significant improvements. They're doing their part
Right,
as well,
yeah.
and I want you guys to know that.
Sure.
So, and you mentioned earlier about diversion programs. We still have the law enforcement assisted diversion program that's still in place. As for low-level misdemeanors with drug addictions and mental health issues, so we certainly impose those. But I mean, we have some things we need to fix. We will arrest the average person 4 times on a misdemeanor warrant in our community. We'll arrest them. We'll book them. They'll get a new court date. They don't show up for their court date. We arrest. They get another warrant issued for them. We arrest them again, and it's this perpetual cycle of no accountability. And that is a problem in our community. And like Abby mentioned, it's a problem across the state of Washington. And, but I think in order to make those improvements, we need to continue to apply some pressure and make sure that they understand where the city of College Place is coming from and what it is that you, the council and the mayor want to do. And hopefully we can leverage that to get them to be a little bit more aligned with what our goals are.
Okay, thanks.
I do
can
want,
also add to that, in response to what Chief Tomaras said, Judge Hadeen mentioned, well, both the prosecutor, Mr. Rio, mentioned he was going to start pushing. I mean, when we were there in May, he was going to start asking for some jail time. He was going to start asking for some stronger things. And Judge Hadeen welcomed that. He said, please do. It doesn't always mean that he's going to get what he asks for, but he said, I welcome the prosecutor to ask for, what he believes is necessary for accountability, and then the decision, would be made from there. And I neglected to add during the presentation that even with the differing opinions of some of the stakeholders from the judicial philosophy, all of them appreciated the consistency of the judges. They said, we know what we're going to get with attorneys working in the courtroom. One of the things that they absolutely don't like is when you go in front of a judge and you have no idea what you're going to get on a case-by-case, day-to-day basis. And they said that's not the case. Although we may not necessarily agree with all of the sentences that are given, the what happens, we can expect that, and we appreciate the consistency and the fairness across the board from the judges.
I said 2 questions. I'll do my follow-up. Okay, thanks. As far as I have a question about the proposed budget, and where I think we're all a little surprised. But do the new numbers include any? Are they net of revenue? I'll call it revenue for a lack of a better term. And I'm guessing it's probably the revenue is probably immaterial.
Yeah, so that is not something that we received when we were reviewing anything, was any revenue that was gathered. But I can say across the country, courts and Washington is probably going to be one of the first, is probably moving faster than most in this area just because of the landscape, the political landscape of the state. Courts are moving away from fines and fees charged in courts. And so I don't anticipate revenue generation to be very significant at all. I'm not saying you wouldn't get anything from it, but to make up anywhere near the difference in what you're paying versus what it would cost, it's not going to even be comparable.
did you want to share what you?
No, and that was the one question I had for Abby when I reviewed the draft. And I did reach out to the city of Gig Harbor and try to get a perspective of what they brought into the court, and just what Abby said, that if you're indigent and you're convicted, it's very likely that you will not be asked to pay the fee or the fines. Where the majority of the revenue that's generated is from infractions, and that's the other thing too, is the district court does misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor, but they also do the infractions, the speeding tickets, the seatbelt tickets, those types of things. So that's where the majority of your revenue comes from. So we, for an average ticket of $150, you're going to generate half of that back to the court. And we had 1,800 tickets last year, so just a little less than $50,000 would come back to the city if they were all committed fines. So it's really hard to estimate what kind of revenue you're going to bring into the city, but your best guess is going to be based off infractions, not criminal behavior.
Councilmember Williams.
So that just added a question. So I have several questions, some of which are just my ignorance. So when you say, so right now, let's say I got a speeding ticket and I was convicted and I went down and paid my fine. Where does that money go? Does that go and reduce the cost of running the court, or?
Yeah, I actually have a breakdown of where all the money of a ticket goes.
Oh,
And I'm
cool.
happy to hand that to you if you'd like me to approach and give that to you.
Sure.
Pretty small, Frank, but I can email you a better copy of that.
I told him this was going to be the one question council had.
Yeah. Well, so it looks like if I'm reading this, so local of $150, local general fund gets 47. Then there's crime victims, state general fund, other state general fund, trauma cares, another state general fund, traumatic brain injury, JIS. I don't know what that is. And tech support. So, okay, so
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
it sounds like judicial information system or
Yeah,
something.
that's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, so, that just made me curious about that. But, so I had a couple of, specific questions. I really appreciated all the work that went into this study. When you talk about judicial officer on those, charts, is that a judge? Is that what that means?
Yes.
Or okay, that wasn't clear to me. And so there was judicial officer, and then there were the other standard things like court administrator and stuff. But it looked like to me that the state only gives a estimate for the judicial officer part.
Yeah, so most states do what they call a judicial needs analysis. And one of the primary reasons they do that is if they are going to the legislature to ask, for additional judges in a certain community. So they will say, based on case filings, here's what we believe your judicial need is. And sometimes that can be, very on target. And sometimes it's like, well, we have these certain things in our community, so we actually don't need that amount, or we need more than that. But many states at the state level do an analysis of, based on case filings, what they feel your judicial need would be for a community your size.
Okay. And then we've talked, and you talked in your report about the community court. Is that included in this budget, or is that separate? And if so, how are we paying for that? That's probably more a Brian or.
Yeah. Brian, do you have any information? I believe the community court may be independent of what you're paying to Walla Walla County District Court, but correct me if I'm wrong.
So you're referring to like rehab instead of criminal, is what I believe you're referring to
Well, there was mention in the
in the presentation.
presentation about community court. I think we've heard that term. That,
Yeah.
yeah, it's basically diversion programs, I think.
Yeah.
It's a program. It's kind of new.
Well, they have community court, which will, and then they have drug court, which I'm a part of the board on that. And the community court provides opportunities to rehab and provide alternate resources for people to, why is this are you stealing food? Are you, that type of thing. That's the way I understand it.
Well, but my question was, how are we paying for it?
But it's one billing.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it is
absolutely.
included
Yeah,
in
yep.
the,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, that was my
Including
question.
our court fees.
And then my last question is, you mentioned that in the report, there was information about all this study, but also ideas of how we could potentially improve things short of starting our own court. But I didn't see those in the presentation.
Yeah, so some of them, sorry, I didn't call them out specifically, but some of them, it sounds like are already in progress. For example, some said, you know, we believe we do need additional dockets, based on the number of cases. And it sounds like, Chief Tomaros indicated they've already started to add some of those, things like, well, maybe, because one of the concerns was if we put someone in jail, maybe the offense doesn't warrant them to be in jail and for 2 weeks, which is when our next court hearing is. Like they probably shouldn't be in jail that long. So what do we do in the interim? And I know that the court administrator and the judges were like, if we need to, you know, have a small docket on the opposite weeks for, you know, a half a morning or an afternoon, something like that, like we can have a conversation about that. They also said if they have court every day of the week, not specific to College Place, but they have court dockets every day of the week. So they said we're there most days. I think they said if we have court going on, you know, if they want to add on a couple of cases, you know, obviously not, you know, 50, but if they have some that need to be seen right away, or they, you know, they don't want to wait until they can't wait until the next cycle of when court is held, we are more than willing to accommodate those requests. Let's just figure out a process for doing it. So that was some case flow management that they talked about. As Chief Tomaros said, the notice of intent of this study, I heard overwhelmingly that very much spurred collaboration and communication amongst the stakeholders okay, if there are issues, how can we work to resolve those? So I think people with maybe the change in partners that have occurred since when this was initiated, you know, in late 2024, I think the changeover of some of the contracts and some of the staff, it very much has spurred a more collaborative partnership of what can we do when an issue comes up, and we are more than willing to work through that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And I would hope going forward, what I would like to hear is from the chief and our attorneys and our staff are the things that we have as pinch points are they being worked through at that level, or do we need to ask for changes to our agreement? Because I think there's keep the agreement in place, there's stop the agreement, but then there's also tweak the agreement. And so I think we just need to hear back as time goes on if that's needed or happening.
It does, and I would tell you that we are doing everything within our power to communicate those issues with Judge Hedin and the district court, and he has been very open to those criticisms. And keep in mind, there are some things that are out of his control that are driven legislatively. The state's superior court sets the court rules, and so sometimes that can be driven politically. And so if we want additional change, that might have to happen legislatively.
Thank you. And one final comment that reminded me of is if a number of the issues are infrastructure, I think there might be room for conversations as to how do we work together on that issue. Because there was a lot of talk about the facilities and that being a problem. So we might consider that moving forward.
And I do believe the county has a plan. I think it's the old courthouse or jail downtown. They're trying to remodel it, but it's been a long plan to put district court in that. So.
Thank you both.
All right, Councilmember Boyle.
Thank you so much, Abby. That presentation was really great. I appreciate the work that went into that study. Gave a lot of insight. And the piece that most of my questions that popped up for me have been asked and answered. But the piece that I want to make sure that we keep in mind, and I know that the sticker shock of the cost, I think made a lot of us think that, okay, well, we need to find a way to make things work in Walla Walla. But the other thing to keep in mind is, even if we said, oh, we have this genius way of finding $750,000 that we just can't think of anything else to do with it. If we move forward with bringing in our own court, that doesn't guarantee that we're going to see the action from a judge or court that we necessarily would want all the time, right? We can't really control that.
Well, you can, because district court judge is an elected official, which we have no control over, whereas they would be hired and appointed here. So if you did have a judge get out of line with what you choose to happen, you could terminate that contract and find someone that would. Now, talking to my peers in Gig Harbor, they have about a 60% conviction rate. It's pretty good.
Interesting. Well, I stand corrected in
It's
that.
part of the
actually.
pros and the cons when you
Yeah.
list, when you weigh it out, so.
They would become an employee of the city, is what they are.
But wouldn't there, as a judge, isn't it still their discretion how they're ruling? And so we would actually have the authority to say, we don't like how you're ruling, and fire them?
We could
Yes.
say we don't feel that you're prosecuting enough case, or that you're treating the cases in the manner we would like to see them, more aggressively. Therefore, we're moving on to another higher. Yeah, we could.
Interesting.
We could. All right. Any other questions or comments, Councilmember Cleveland?
What is the difference that allows us to appoint rather than elect?
I don't know why I
have
keep
a
sitting
little
down.
information on that, and I'm not going to be speaking entire fact, but from what Mr. Rizzatello told us is there's two, and I may not use the right terminology, but there's two models of government in the state of Washington. The strong mayor is one, and the city manager is the other. Am I making sense? And so one has the ability to, if the individual is less, if the judge is less than a 1.0 FTE, they have the ability to do what Chief Tomaros indicated is if we don't like the way that you are ruling over the cases, we can just find somebody else who does, and it doesn't have to be elected. The other form of government, an election is required. So I believe you have the governmental structure where you can hire and fire the judge if they're less than a full-time employee.
Okay, thank you. And Troy, we just want to keep you in shape.
We'll come up with something. I see.
Abby, thank you so much. We really appreciated all your work. We appreciated your team coming down here, spending some time with us. It was great seeing you in person and being able to speak. And I look forward to the final 80-page report.
All right, I'll be in touch. Thank you so much. And I'll be in touch with Chief Tomaros to get that finalized and disseminated out to you. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity this evening. If you have any other follow-up questions, please do reach out to the chief. He has my or the mayor, they have my contact information. If you want to ask something further, I welcome those questions. So have a great evening.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. So up next is Mr. Enslow, who's been patiently waiting. He's here to discuss the 2026 state legislative agenda. Welcome, Mr. Enslow. It's good to see you.
It's nice to see you as well. Just technology check. You can hear me well. I'm coming across good, clear and loud.
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. I am Brian Enslow. I'm your state legislative consultant, which is a consultant speak for lobbyist. So you've also got the esteemed Mr. John Colton on your agenda later this evening. He's your federal lobbyist. So I'm your state lobbyist. I represent, in addition to the city of College Place, as part of the coalition of local government, the Port of Walla Walla and the County of Walla Walla as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. Thanks, and I am honored to be on the same agenda as on the agendas the same night as such a meaningful proclamation. So thank you for that. I want to share a little bit about the upcoming legislative session, kind of some of the fiscal and political context, and then run you through what we hope is a pretty good cut of your general principle statements and some action items for the 2026 session. So I am still very concerned I guess, about the just general fiscal outlook with respect to state revenues. They have been holding stable, but there's just a lot of uncertainty. And then more so about kind of the what I have probably inaccurately deemed, but like cascading federalism, whereas the federal government looks to shift roles and responsibilities to the state with respect to, say, our safety net program and things like that, then the state government kind of looks to locals to pick up some things. And so I see some potential real tension there. And as we get into some of the details of our principal statements in our agenda, I'll highlight some of those areas. But, local government fared pretty well last year in terms of that roles and responsibilities, presuming the state. When the state was looking at cuts, they didn't cut deep into like shared revenue or some of the grant programs that rely on like MODCA and Public Works notwithstanding, but like big picture. So I'm a little worried about that. There's always some opportunities in the capital budget because of kind of the opportunities for members to individually request appropriations or earmarks that will be maintained. So there is some opportunity there. But overall, I think the capital budget is going to be pretty strained because of the need to maybe backfill some things that had originally thought they would be funded through federal resources, but now it's becoming a little bit more problematic for local jurisdictions to sign the contracts based on the provisions that are in them. So those are some of the things I'm just thinking about as we look into next year. I wouldn't rule more revenue proposals. But after last year, 2026 is heading into an election year for all of the House members and half the senators. So I wouldn't expect a huge appetite for another revenue vote. So next slide, please. There is a Scribner's error. There is only 98 seats in the State House, not 99. So it should be that first bullet should say 5939. I apologize for that. But the long and short of it is, I don't, there's more local elections this year than normal. Some of that was because of change in the executive. A lot of sitting legislators became cabinet members, and then House members went to fill those seats. And there's really only one election. The way I read it, there's really one election in play, and that would potentially change the Senate majority from like 29-20 to maybe 28-21, which has some significance because it wouldn't be a super majority anymore. But for the most part, the folks that are kind of running the show are going to continue to run the show. Last year, for anyone who read the newspapers, so I'm not reporting this. I think it was already well reported. There was a lot of tension between the legislature and the executive. Again, especially around the kind of aforementioned revenue proposals. I think, although perhaps some philosophical lack of alignment, I think some of that tension is going to be ameliorated now that this governor's been in place for a year and his staff has been in place in conversations. I think. I don't like surprises. I don't know who likes surprises, but usually when you're in the middle of legislative session, you really don't. And I think some of that tension was caused from a kind of lack of familiarity between the legislature and the new executive. And now I think some of those relationships and that work have been established now. So even though they might not be aligned on some big picture items, at least those conversations and that lack of alignment's been surfaced. Then we're going to see a lot of those unresolved issues from last year. College Place, because of your size, sometimes is out of the fray of some of those bigger, thornier housing questions around requirements on, twofold. One, you've already actually adopted a quite robust and permissive kind of land use policies around missing middle and things like that. So some of those proposals that historically have been challenging for other small cities to embrace, you've already embraced. And then other pieces, a lot of times you're excluded based on size. So for instance, like the minimum parking bill, which was contentious for some of your neighboring jurisdictions. But so a lot of those things are going to come back. I think the two I'm thinking of in particular are around around the House bill was 1380, I believe, last year, around an objectively reasonable standard around the use of public property. And again, that's a mouthful for saying like whether or not you allow unhoused people to sleep, on public property or not, and whether you have ordinances around that. And there's been lots of litigation around that. There was legislation that would pretty much make it impracticable for a city to completely ban behaviors of that nature. So those are some of the things I think are probably going to be coming back and are things that we have to watch for. And then there's going to be there's always like and it's a short session. It's going to be over before it even starts sometimes. But then there's going to be those kind of issues that just kind of fall out of the sky. The one that I use just as an example, a lot of people are angry about EVs and like teenagers zipping around on EVs, or e-bikes, I should say, not EV, but e-bikes specifically. And I given all the other things that we have to deal with, I think in some sense you're like, wow, we're really going to take this on. But those are some of those things where they just kind of come out of nowhere. And there's, that's one I'm hearing, and it's just interesting. And I just want to highlight it as a contrast between kind of like wrestling with some of the major issues of our day, and then how are we going to deal with, teenagers on e-bikes. So next slide, please. Working from last year and kind of building from that, there was a lot of general principles that were adopted as part of your formal agenda. I've had a chance to review them and update as necessary, and I want to provide these for comment. But I think there's a lot of good stuff here. I think, as I mentioned before, there's certainly going to be some concern on how to continue to maintain the programs that the state is already providing. Yet we know there's so many needs in other areas already. We need to continue to look at kind of how to either fund or bring down the price of options in the housing continuum, like whether it's, condominium liability, things like that. We need to continue to ensure that there's sustainable transportation revenue. One of the tools I know the governor's looking at is, could you use tax increment financing to also finance housing? That's something that's going to get a lot of scrutiny. I don't know if that's a conversation that this community's had yet, or something that you would find valuable or appropriate for that tool, but that's I know something that's coming up as well. Next slide, please. Again, in the context of what's practicable or not practicable in a short session, and in a context when there's not a lot of money for new policy, sometimes there's those things that don't cost the state money, but and satisfy their current base, but maybe impact us. Liability is a big one of those. So we're kind of constantly needing to be vigilant to help curtail expansion of liability. Public Records Act, open public meeting. You do a tremendous job of being incredible stewards of the public trust. That being said, sometimes there's individuals that abuse that, and it is a two-way street. And how do we do the job to provide the access and information to the vast majority of individuals that just want information about their government without it being impeded by one or two scofflaws that really bog down our ability to respond to everybody else. So those are kind of the lens in which we look at that, and in which we try to work on that. Next slide, please. Yes. Again, I'm going to belabor this point, and I'm sorry if you're like, gosh, that our state lobbyist is so obtuse and so redundant. But I think particularly in this year, we have to look really long and hard in unfunded mandates. You just had, an excellent conversation about kind of the court system in general. I think most all of you are probably aware that there are caseload standards with respect to misdemeanor defense standards that were adopted and will have to be implemented over the next couple of years, which will drive cost for you, either route you choose. And things of that nature are things that we have to continue to look for or ensure that we're adequately compensated for those additional expectations. State agency rulemaking, some of the stormwater things that have come out of ecology and things of that nature have a very significant impact to our costs associated with infrastructure and maintaining our communities. Next slide, please. Again, retail theft. This wasn't the biggest challenge in my life, but I did buy my partner just bought a house. I bought her a housewarming present and a knife set, like 15 knives and like a big butcher block. There were no knives in it because someone had stolen the knives out of the set. Fortunately, Target was really good. But I mean, and again, I'm not trying. I just this is the amount of retail theft is just an incredible challenge. So how do we have resources? How do we have tools to adjust that from a legislative perspective? We have, on the other side, we talk about supporting our courts. I want to put those two pieces into, I already mentioned indigent defense. The other thing I didn't highlight, again, I think, the ramifications of the Blake decision, which was the court case around whether you can prove that someone knowingly is possessing narcotics, and then the legislation and fallout that essentially decriminalized or eliminated felony criminal consequences for individuals possessing narcotics has shifted a burden onto your courts in a number of ways. And so that comes with a cost, and there has been some level of state support for kind of implementing either the challenges associated with expunging everyone's records, but I don't know if the state has done a nice job of fully acknowledging the shift of responsibilities from what had historically been a not municipal, not district, but superior court level of consequences and costs, so borne by the county and by the state versus municipals around felony criminal activity related to narcotics. So those are some things that we need to think about. Next slide. Wildfire is obviously a significant issue in not just your community, but all of the communities on the east side and now even communities on the west side of Washington. So as much as I hate the tragedy of the Bear Gulch fire on the west side, I do think it helps raise a more statewide awareness of kind of the consequences of wildfire, and hopefully we can have a more sophisticated conversation with the state legislature about what the real needs are for our communities and the work that we do to support them and how they need to be compensated. Next slide, please. This is something that as we work to finalize your agenda, and I think we're hoping to bring it back next week, is this the right item? I think there's still some work for me and your esteemed staff to kind of confer. Is this still ready? Madam Mayor, I know there's been some conversation about the money we received in the underlying budget and whether it's still appropriate or whether there's an opportunity to reuse that. So that's something we need to work on as well. But as I mentioned earlier, I think there should be some opportunity for requests of this scale in the capital budget this year. I wouldn't expect too much more, but this is, I think, a good range to think about as we're thinking about what we want to put forward in terms of capital budget request. Next slide, please. Again, submitted for just your guidance was transportation requests that were on last year's agenda, but we were not able to make progress on last year, and whether or not it still makes sense to move forward with them this year. And then I think that concludes my prepared remarks. So if we go to the next slide. So what are my next steps? As I alluded to, get your comments, your feedback, incorporate them into the agenda and put forward a final document for your approval. I said the word final, but what I would say is, right, the legislature itself is a living, breathing organism. I tend to feel like the agenda is there. It sets kind of a compass for me and some principles, but as opportunities arise, I always work with your incredible staff to see whether they make sense for your community and whether we want to take advantage of them, or conversely, as issues come up, are these things that are concerning to us, and do we need to, voice some opposition? So it's a final agenda, but there is opportunities always to weigh in on things as they come up. And I think that concludes my remarks. I know we're pretty late, so I did use my super fast talking, so I do apologize, and I don't think I took a breath the entire time, but
I think John most appreciates that because he's still sitting here.
I know, and he's in person. I feel terrible. I wasn't able to be in person. I just got back from a little bit of some time off, and I just wasn't able to arrange. So I do apologize for being on Zoom.
No, that's okay. That's okay. All right, I'm going to go real quick through council members. Councilmember Lopez, questions or comments?
No questions. Very, very insightful. Thank you so much for your work.
Councilmember Cleveland?
No questions, but I'll echo Councilmember Lopez.
Councilmember Espinosa?
Yeah, Brian, with a $421 million shortfall that we're anticipating for the legislature here in the state of Washington, do you foresee that a lot of the projects that we've put forth, the infrastructure projects, are going to be heavily impacted? Or are we going to be successful in some way to get the funds to get them completed or started?
So I'm slightly optimistic on the infrastructure side, setting aside like the operating budget, which I think the operating budget is there's just zero opportunity there. I think there's going to be a desire from legislators to fill some of the gaps that are being created by the changes in federal regulations around our like safety net programs. So I think operating budget is going to be really tight. Transportation and capital budget, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm watching interest rates really closely, and I'm also watching bids. And I don't know. I'd be curious to hear from like your public works and other folks. Like, and I guess what I would say is, I represent a handful of other jurisdictions. I am seeing like good bids, and it started maybe about 12 months ago, but it seems to be pretty consistent where like, so for instance, Ferndale's a city comparable to your size. It's like 15,000, so it's a little bit bigger. They just put out their new civic campus, and they had an engineer's estimate of 18 million. And the actual bid came back at 13 million. And I guess what I'm getting at, and I'm sorry for being a little bit verbose, is you have a transportation and capital budget that have like, 6-year plans, 10-year plans, et cetera. And for the, since the start of the pandemic till about a year ago, those kept getting just blown out of the water because of inflation and the cost of materials and things like that. And I know that, tariffs might have some impact on it. But right now what we're seeing is if bids are coming back at 85% of our estimate or something like that, that actually is going to create capacity, and it's actually going to help fund more projects. Whether or not that actually materializes, I'm a pretty cautious person. I don't like to bet. I don't, especially if it's my money, but just if I'm looking at a crystal ball and I'm thinking about what's happening from a kind of construction, and whether it's, concrete and steel this way, which is the capital budget, and concrete and steel this way, which is the transportation budget, both of those I'm looking at. People are wanting to keep their crews mobilized. They're wanting to keep people on board, and bids are getting a little bit better. And I'm optimistic that there's opportunity within those requests. So that is a very long answer to a question. And I apologize for not being more concise.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We are seeing that as well, Brian. In fact, so much that it makes us question the quality of the work, right? Because a bid is so below the estimate. It's like, well, how could that possibly be? So that is something we are seeing. Councilmember Peterson.
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
No intelligent questions, thank you.
Council Member Boyle.
No questions. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, Brian, I've got one question for you, and it's actually not mine. It comes from John Rickard, our Community Development Director. He's wondering if it's too late to add an item related to the legislative change to the UGA process for Eastern Washington cities. There's a need for it to be simplified solution to how our UGAs are allocated, just because we're so different than Western Washington's cities, that having to follow the standards of rapid growth that they are having to work with, it's preventing us, from being able to take the steps for even small growth. So he is wondering, if that's something that could be added as our priorities.
It is not too late. We actually had a conversation, gosh, I guess it was middle of September, and we included AWC to have a conversation about what was kind of going on specific to College Place with respect to your kind of UGA requests. So so it's not too late from my timeline, and if it's something that you want, I do what I'm told. So from a process standpoint, not too late. And if it's something that is of the consent of the council and staff of 100%, we can add it.
Okay, I'll send you his email where he laid out some reasoning for it, just so that you have the base idea as we discuss potentially taking this forward, since it hasn't actually come up.
That sounds great, Madam Mayor. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Enslew. Councilmember Williams has this question for you.
I really appreciate John's question, because I was sitting here trying to figure out, I want to see how we can combine UGA and affordable housing, because we keep talking about affordable housing, but without our UGA, we can't do it. And so John's on the right track. So I just want to say, yes, there's at least one council member fully in support.
All right, great. Yeah, and the mayor, obviously. Anybody, any other questions or comments before we let Mr. Enslew go for the night? All right, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your, also thank you for your responding. And while we're out of a city administrator, their interactions with me, I do appreciate the responses and the explanations to help me get my footing of where we're at.
At the bottom of every email is my cell number, and you compensate me to be unreasonable, so you can call me anytime, night.
John says, don't put me in that one though.
We all make our own deals. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so very much. You have a good night.
Good night.
All right. Now, Mr. Colton is up to discuss the state of the 2026 federal legislative agenda. Press the little button. There should be a button in the center somewhere there. There you go.
Green light. Perfect. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for the time. You're going to notice on our slide deck that there's not a legislative update from the federal government. Why? It's shut down and it changes hourly. I can tell you the latest and greatest that you probably all read the news. The fiscal year ends at the end of September and the new one starts October 1. If Congress does not agree to does not have a spending deal, you have to pass 12 appropriations bills. I won't go through them, make you all fall asleep. But Congress has to, one, either pass appropriations bills or pass a continuing resolution, which is essentially keeping the same funding amount from the previous fiscal year, and they call it a CR. When Congress does not do either of those things, it shuts down. So right now, again, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything new, anyone who's watched the news. The ACA subsidies, that's really what the argument is about right now. Senate and House Democrats really want the ACA subsidies extended. Republicans, there have been a lot that have expressed interest. However, they would like 7 weeks to finish their appropriations bills and then have the conversation on the tax subsidies. And Democrats, you know, that's not where they're at. So Congress is fighting. They do a really good job of that. Very bipartisan. And so now we are shut down. There have been people have not been talking. I will say that Speaker Mike Johnson did call a certain Democrat whose name happens to be Patty Murray to kind of walk through, you know, how we can start to get to the negotiating table. You may or may not remember that Senator Murray actually in 2013 worked with then Speaker Paul Ryan. I don't know if you remember the Boehner shutdown days, and we just did this over and over and over again. And him and President Obama could not agree. So it's deja vu. It seems like every 2 or 3 years. But she was able to work with Speaker Ryan, and they came to a deal. And it really kind of ended this eternal shutdown situation that we were in a little over a decade ago. But here we are again, and we will see what happens. The House is not in session this week, so I can tell you that the shutdown will continue to next week and perhaps beyond. The president has said he did have a conversation or has been having some conversations with Senate Democrats. Chuck Schumer, Senate Democratic leader, said no, that it's not actually happening. So, I mean, yeah, I have a 10-year-old and 12-year-old, and it's like I'm watching them on TV 50 years from now. Anyway, so yes, yes, we will make sure they grow up and are good negotiators. So that slide right there is the federal update. And of course, you know, implications of HR 1, which we all know really was the tax cuts. There was some regulatory reform, some things on energy. The Inflation Reduction Act, which was primarily a clean energy bill that has been funding. Some funding has been rescinded. For instance, the EV money for EV and a lot of just clean energy things. And then, of course, Medicaid, which is as you're having the state conversation, you know, people are going to be kicked off of Medicaid in Washington state. We know this. That means, of course, the burden will therefore be on the hospitals, especially if people are not, utilizing preventative care. So, you know, the state is going to have to figure out, okay, how do we backfill for that, right? Or are we just not going to address it, which in Washington state, I don't really think that's something that state legislators would choose to agree to. So as you're thinking through your state agenda, maybe just a base backfill any kind of funding loss through Medicaid is an option, or don't is the other option, right? But I just want to throw that out there that those losses will be pretty significant. Okay. You've given me the power, so it's the middle one. There's literally 3 buttons.
Is it back?
No,
It's the big button.
that's what I'm pressing. Oh, there we go. All right, so 3 buttons. I was never good at that. Okay, so with the city through the mayor and then previous city manager, Mr. Rizzatello, we had come up with, okay, what are some of our FY25 priorities that has now transitioned into our 26 priorities. So I'm just going to start with kind of the 4 verticals that we had discussed. I will say in so historically, and I think the council knows, in FY24, we got, I think, 2.5 for Majania Road. Great. In FY25, we actually got, I think it was $3 million for Reservoir 4. But Congress passed what I'd referenced earlier, a full, a CR. And basically it was a full year CR. So all of the earmarks around the country, they all went away. So all of the advocacy we did going to DC, $3 million, it was a huge win because that is a lot in earmark space. We don't get that funding. So in FY '26, we requested $3 million for Reservoir 4. We have a freshman representative, Representative Baumgartner. He requested 3, he got 1. So we have $1 million for Reservoir 4 sitting out there. I will say that when we're thinking about Congress kind of doing its job, if we do a full year CR again, we will not get that funding. So again, all of this advocacy spent, it is really hard when you have 850 requests in the state and we get one of those, out of, maybe 50, that's a big deal. The city has done a great job in advocacy. Congress has just not been a very great partner. So as we're watching all these negotiations, I would say the term full year CR is our worst enemy. So anyway, that is our worst enemy, besides obviously the government never reopening. So there's the victory. That's where we're at. Now let's talk about these next projects. And I'm not trying to be prescriptive at all. Obviously the council, my cell is actually on my email too. So feel free to text me, email me, say, hey, these are projects that are really important. But this is what we have so far. Slide, please. Okay, so Lions Park Community Center. I think the city has done a really good job of finding multiple funding sources. Right now, we're going to advocate for another $2 million. What we're telling, again, at the, I know this is a document we will, pass in the next 30 days or so. We have to decide, is it a business incubator? Is it a childcare center? Is it a library? And I think we've kind of figured out it's aggregation of all of them. So as we're communicating to our legislators, that's the story we're telling. And it's a great story, especially to Senator Murray, huge in childcare. Senator Cantwell, the small business center, she loves that. Representative Baumgartner, I think he's got another priority that I'll talk about in a second. But that's project 1 that we're thinking about. I will say that Senator Cantwell did submit a $2.5 million request for us in FY, I think 24 and 25, but we didn't make it past the subcommittee process. So, that's the first threshold, is you have to make it through the subcommittee first before you get to the full appropriations committee. We didn't get there. But again, the fact that she submitted it was a big deal and shows her support. Okay, now slide, please. Police modernization. This is a project that, let's see, I'm being recorded, so how will I say this? Representative Baumgartner was in a meeting with a non-germane entity to the city. They were making an ask. He was not super impressed with this entity, that's a big entity, making an ask. And he looked at him and he said, this is after the mayor and Mr. Rizzatello and I were in DC talking to his office. He said, I'm not really buying what you're selling. You know who does a really good job of advocacy? And that's the city of College Place. And I'm going to get them their new jail. So he got us water instead. That's fine. But, so I think this cycle, we're going to go back and make this request of him. $3 million might be high because as a freshman congressman, that's just a high number. Congressman Morris Rogers, I remember one time, I don't know if we were in the room, but she walked out of her office and just looked at us and said, just give them whatever they want. And she was kidding, of course, but as chair of, the Energy and Commerce Committee, she had that, that kind of influence. That's after a 20-year career, right? So your allocation is a lot higher. But the Congressman Baumgartner has been very, very supportive. And so, my advice would be, this is probably the project we should bring to his office. All right, slide, please. Reservoir 4. The saga continues. We're going to continue to ask for funding. So what the mayor and myself and Mr. Rizzatello talked about, I think 2 years ago, was why don't we look at other funding sources besides just state and federal earmarks? And what we were able to do is get this project funded in the Water Resources and Development Act, the WRDA bill, for FY24. Now, and actually you can go slide, please, because I think I've got it on the next slide. So essentially, this is the country's water bill that we pass every 2 years. And what you do in that water bill is you identify, multiple projects, usually with municipalities through the Section 219 program. And if it passes, we are specifically named as a city in WRDA 2024 authorized. So it's a really big deal for $5 million for Reservoir 4. Great. There's difference between authorizing and appropriating. Yeah. So we've got $5 million authorized, but that's based on funding and prioritization from the Army Corps of Engineers. So what the mayor has started is negotiations with the Army Corps of Engineers. Again, a lot of staff are not there right now because the government shut down, to write a letter of intent. Hey, this project is important to us. The Army Corps of Engineers will then take that letter, say, okay, great, and they'll work to get a capability study. And basically, it's just like it sounds. The Corps has to figure out, okay, how much can we do each year with the amount of funding that we're allocated, and then through this large, rack and stack process through all the projects in the country. So I know, nice, Mayor, you're looking at me like, yeah, it's really cumbersome. However, here is the great news. Once the Corps gets us the capability study, we can then get funding. We can get earmarks through that account. So this is important because, obviously the city, we can get our $2 million earmarks. That's great. It comes directly to the city. However, when we go through this rigmarole here, we can actually get funding through the Army Corps of Engineers, which sometimes you can get a higher amount from. So basically, Congress will say, Army Corps of Engineers, here's $3 or $4 million. Thou shalt spend it, though, on this project in the city of College Place. So that's a big deal. All right, next slide. Okay, College Street. So Mr. Rizzatello and I have talked about this. Road projects are very, very difficult at the federal level right now. It's, what is the compelling story? I think safety really is kind of how we've tried to couch this project. But the council, of course, is going to have to prioritize which is most important of all of these asks. Again, going back to, I think, the police station for Representative Baumgartner, but of the others, we'll have to pick and choose, what you want to do. And slide, please. So I don't know if the council members are aware, every month our firm provides you with a grants matrix. And essentially what this does is it looks at every grant that we can find out there, and it matches it the best we can with projects on the council's CIP and your transportation plan. So your TIP and your CIP. So, and then what we do is, or what we had done with Mr. Rizzatello, is we walk through all these programs and then we decide, okay, do we want to write a grant for this? And of course, at that time, Mr. Rizzatello did that. I know now we're trying to figure out, okay, who's going to do grant writing. But that's just kind of to give visibility, because we can do state earmarks, we can do federal earmarks, but there's also all these programs out there, the CURB, the TIB, all kinds of different opportunities that we want to make sure we take advantage of. So firm gives the city this, and it's actually a 90-day outlook. So it has programs, funding levels, minimum, maximum, published dates, deadlines, descriptors, all that kind of stuff. All right, slide, please. Oh boy. Sorry, I've tried to get past 50 before I got readers. At 47, I don't know if I'm going to finish it, but I'm going to sure try. So, is that in August? Okay. So I'm so sorry. Oh, bless you. Okay. So in August, that's when we start, talking about our strategy, what priorities we're thinking about, starting to put pen to paper. And then that bleeds over into September when we start to finalize some of our material. You see, we've got an agenda, we've got one pagers, we've got all of those things. And now as we've rolled into October, the council's going to have to decide, okay, how do we want to rank these? What are other projects? What do we need to drop off? And then in October, we'll conduct our district tours, bring staff out here, Baumgartner, Murray, and Cantwell, and just kind of socialize, hey, these are the projects we have. Which one do you like the best? And make sure, can fit. Because what we've done is we've actually asked each member for a different project. So best case scenario, we get 3 bites of the apple. And then in November, we continue that. We refine kind of the ask based on, feedback and political landscape. And then staff will tell us, hey, we like this. Hey, we don't like this. We will then in December, we start to kind of engage DC staff, and then we start to plan our trips. And that is when the mayor, Mr. Rizzatello, and I have been back in DC, usually between January and March. Why that's important? In February, usually in February with our federal delegation, they open up the earmark appropriations portal. And so then we have about the month to submit all of our information, which our firm does. And then from there, all those projects get vetted in March and April. And so we want to make sure that we're communicating as much as possible. Hey, this is why we're the most important project in the state. And then in April, that's usually when members will submit those projects to the appropriations subcommittees. I talked before about Senator Cantwell submitting our project to the subcommittee. It did make it out, but all the other ones we've submitted have made it out to that subcommittee in April. And then April through May, that's when, if they have any feedback for us, subcommittees need technical amendments or anything like that, we work through that process. And from there, it's pretty much out of our hands. So when we play the waiting game, we make sure it gets out, the subcommittee, and then it gets through the full appropriations committee. And then we wait. We wait for each chamber to pass its appropriations bills, conference, agree, and go to the president's desk. And then in August, we start all over again. So there you go. I personally am impressed that I was able to read that. Okay, slide, please. There we go. Thank you so much. Any questions,
All right.
comments, concerns?
Yeah, Councilmember.
Good optometrist.
Yeah, I want to ask you to, what letter is this? Cover your right eye.
Yeah, I just actually got my driver's license renewed, and they said, okay, you need to take an eye test. And I was like, oh no, I don't know if I'm gonna make this one, but anyway, they let you just read the big letters.
Close it up.
Yeah.
All right. Councilmember Lopez, questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you for this very detailed report. I'm curious from the perspective of looking for a new city administrator, the skill set of grants came up. Is that something that you would recommend that we have, or is that something, a skill set that you do, or?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a grant shop. So we actually have our 3 pillars are federal, state, and grants. I think it's just a natural, because, you kind of become a family with clients, understanding all the different things. And we want to make sure we're not just a one-trick pony. That's a tough one. I know Mr. Rizzatello was probably one of the better grant writers I've ever known. The only thing is really cost. If you can do it in-house, so much easier. Or we do just on a monthly retainer fee. I don't want to do sales pitch or anything like that. It's a lot cheaper to do it in-house. Because if you're going to hire a grant writer, I mean, they are not cheap. So again, the advice would be hire in-house, or make sure if you hire someone, it is on a retainer basis. So they're not going to charge you for every letter or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then the grants matrix that you mentioned, is that something that we get by email or something that?
Actually, it's funny. I bet you it still goes to Mike's email address.
It's been going to Mike's, but we get Mike's email.
Okay. So let's socialize that with everyone.
Yeah.
Or how would you like? You want to send it to you? And
Send it to me.
Okay.
Send it to me, and I can go from there, because I've been getting it through Mike's emails.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that's a lot. So, but yeah, we'll send that over. And the thing to note is, as you're looking through all those, as you're making financial decisions, a lot of those grants have matches. So it's 20%, some are forgivable loans, you know, those kind of things. So definitely, but we have that all in that document, so you can make an informed decision.
Councilmember Cleveland?
I don't know if you would venture to like even weigh in on this, but I'm pretty concerned about Medicaid and its impact on our providers in more rural areas. What is your sense on the winds of what is going to be happening with that? I mean, do we anticipate that, like, I'm not an economist, you know, but this is what I read, is that like it's going to have a pretty disastrous effect on our local medical providers. Within my own organization that I work for, Comprehensive Healthcare, there's, you know, we're hearing from our leadership, you know, we're very aware of the future and the concerns about what may be on the horizon. And we're talking and working very diligently to address your concerns, which is a lot of saying, hey, we're very aware, but we're not sure what we're doing. At least that's how I interpret it, is like, there's a lot of uncertainty. So I'm just wondering if you can provide any thoughts on like, what do you anticipate happening around that? Or is that not something that you don't forecast? Or
No, I can get into it a little bit. So in terms of HR1, you know, there are going to be different work requirements for Medicaid. The state of Washington and all states are not going to have a lot of time to determine things like the definition of medically frail, right? And you think about a population with substance abuse issues, you know, mental health issues, those kind of things, having to do check-ins twice a year, or, you know, there's going to be a lot of problems. The state of Washington is going to have to figure it out. I think it's HHS only has a certain amount. Sorry, there's so much. It's one of those things where you try to distill it, and as you know, it's a lot. But
right, I'm not going to have an elephant through like a doggy door or something.
I'll try to go really macro. The state's not going to have a lot of time to implement aggregating work requirements and that piece, that staff in agency, along with the healthcare piece. They have to figure all of those things out. That's going to be really challenging to do. And I think with the timelines and definitions that HHS have to put out, the state might have 7 months to do it. It seems like a long time, but for that, it's going to be challenging. And yeah, I mean, Medicaid reimbursements were not great as it was. Medicare, not great. Yeah, so again, your hospitals are going to be flooded. Okay, I don't want to be doomsday because maybe that's not the case, but common sense would tell us that your hospitals are going to, you know, have effects. People are not going to have healthcare, and you know, all of those different ripple effects, whether it comes to just treatment, how that affects crime, right, and how it affects vulnerable, populations. You know, that is where I think having, you know, just supporting the state in that effort and keeping up to speed on what HCA, the Washington Healthcare Authority, you know, what everyone's doing right now, that's really, really important just to stay up to date. So I don't know if I'm answering your question the best way I can. There's also
about as good as anyone, I think.
Yeah, well, there's more. Right now in the House and Senate, the different appropriations bills, in the House, you have a lot of consolidation of different programs, especially touching mental health and substance abuse. It meshes it all together, and they do different block grants. So that is going to reduce funding and again, reduce resources. The Senate is not there, but in this work to cut costs, that's something else on the horizon that, you know, could be very, very challenging. Along again with ACA subsidy, you know, if those taxes benefits go away, small business owners, anyone from just off that Medicaid mark up to the middle class, I mean, you're going to see some serious rate increases. So, I mean, doubling. Yeah. So anyway, that's the happy, but you know.
So more Armageddon.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, thank you.
Yep. I'm not buying my glasses because I don't know how it's all going. Anyway.
Councilmember Espinosa.
Great information. Thank you, John. Appreciate you sharing that with us. No questions.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Peterson.
A question about Department of Agriculture. I know how much impact does the Department of Agriculture have in our area? I have noticed over the years, some of the, I wouldn't call them odd, but like, funds used to build a hospital in Eastern or Northeastern Oregon, equipment, ability to buy, I think maybe for us, street equipment or something out of it. And I'm guessing there's some pressure with, commodities and whatnot that's going on, and I'm sure it's all connected, but what are your thoughts on that? Does that type of funding affect our area sometimes, or is it more of a even more rural area than this, perhaps?
No, we do. There's different definitions. One of the ones to build the hospital is the USDA Rural Development Community Facilities Program. Now, USDA's, and Mr. Rizzatello has told the mayor many times, maybe some of you, that USDA is not the easiest agency to deal with. It's just very, very cumbersome.
That's Brian's nemesis is USDA.
Okay, yeah. So you know, and I even say that, you're probably cringing right now. But the Community Facilities Program, you know, that is a program that usually people use to build public safety buildings, hospitals, those kind of things. It is mostly loan in the state of Washington. You have to go to 3 different banks to see if you can get a better rate. It is an earmarkable account, but the match, I think for our area is like 30% or something like that. So in terms of resources, rural development does have different programs like that. And that's just appropriated, you know, through the regular process. Staffing wise right now, USDA 50% are furloughed, and 90 or 95% of NRCS, which is conservation, are also furloughed. Why that matters probably is, you know, a farmer, you know, looking to go to the NRCS office to get a payment for EQIP, or, you know, all the different acronyms, all the different programs, that could be affected because regional offices close. So, you know, furloughs, those are impacted. Cost cuts to USDA, yeah, that will affect staffing. So sorry, I'm kind of like going furloughs, people not there, hopefully how it affects the commodities and then different programs. I know that's like all over the board, but does that kind of answer?
Well, I was just curious. The community center and whatnot, I've always wondered if they're, it's an odd kind of connection between the USDA and buildings, you know, and I just wondered if there was ever an avenue there, but anyway, yeah, thanks.
Well, yeah, and that's actually, that's a great point, because that is the program that we're looking to earmark for that community center, is that community facilities program. So that, and the great part is because we've already got ELF money from the state, I think the library might have gotten some money, that counts as our match. So basically when we're going after our earmark, if we do get, you know, Lance Park, but there's nothing the council has to do or approve, and we get, you know, 70% or whatever of the, you know, what the cost is. So hopefully that's helpful.
You're way ahead of me. Thanks.
No, yes, of course.
Councilmember Williams?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Boyle?
No questions, but I really appreciate you putting all of this together and helping us get a much better understanding of the standings and some of the situations and kind of those different possibilities of how the dominoes all fall together. And that is really helpful to me, at least.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's the only program that will fund the community center. It's the only one.
Aside from Don't Do It for Brian.
We already spoke to USDA, the community program, about the police station.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there would be Lions Park too, it'd be both of those. I will also mention, Mr. Rizzatello was working with NRCS on, I think it was the PL 566 program for a stormwater project around Garrison and Stone, I think is what he said. There, you have to do a PIFR, forgot the acronym, through NRCS, but something to think about in terms of funding. You know, we look at the different grants, different sources.
Maybe I can talk to you separately about that.
Yeah, it's a
we're really looking to try to get the funding for all our projects that we have in motion,
Mhm.
to try to really get the funding for those so that we can get to build, right? Or get to the project start.
Yeah.
And that would be the reservoir for the community center. And of course, figuring out about our police department.
Yeah.
Yeah, so appreciate all the work you're putting into those. I know you know those are our priorities because we've spoken about them. So I appreciate you keeping that in.
Yeah.
Keeping that in mind for us and all your work.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time too and listening to me. I know I can really wonk out on federal things. I know it's not the most exciting thing,
No,
but
I was
lot going
thinking, you know, if there's not that there's not a silver lining with losing our city administrator, but what is that it has forced really me as well, but significantly to get more knowledgeable about how these things works, because it's always just been Mike just did it, right? We just counted on Mike doing it.
Yep.
And the way he talked about it, it was easy peasy, you know, right? And so it's now put us in a position that we have to actually understand what's happening and know what the process is. So
yeah, and that's gonna be so helpful too when we're just identifying projects. You know, you're hearing from your constituents, and hey, we want to build X project, and okay, great. There's a program, the Washington State Department of Commerce, that will help fund that. Then you can do advocacy on behalf of those that elect you, and yeah. Mike would be proud of all of us, I think. I hope he's watching this right now.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for sticking around. I know it's a late night for you. Safe drive back home.
Happy to do it. Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're on our last agenda item. And Mr. Carlton is
supposed to be done.
to
You haven't made your commitment.
to close out the night with with an overview, a very exciting overview of the next 6 years in College Place with 2026, 2031 capital facilities plan.
Well,
And this is something that is, again, one of those things that was forced me to get more involved in and understand. And I think the
Me as
council will
well.
appreciate this.
I gave this presentation last night to the
EDIC.
yes, the Economic Development Group, and they supported it and they appreciated the presentation. It's a little bit more condensed than Mike's 85-page presentation. This is down to 32. Can I keep it to 20 minutes? Probably not, but this is the preliminary, so we can move through it pretty quick.
What's that picture from?
That is veterans, no, it's what's the development out where Mike lived? Homestead.
Oh, yeah.
That's the Homestead one, yeah. I robbed his pictures from his last year's presentation, so a little different presentation, but this is our preliminary review of the 2026 to 2031 capital facility plan. This is required, as John Colton mentioned, we need the CFP in order to apply for grants, along with the transportation improvement plan, strategic plan. All those support this program and support us getting grants. So Mary Elizabeth is already ahead of me. We can zip through these. It's just basically talking about what's in the plan, how it develops, some key points. They're in there in red. That this is just a preliminary plan. This is, of course, directly affected by what our funding mechanisms are, whether we have reserves in the different funds or we go after loans or grants. It's all sort of kind of moving target in most cases. Mike did the original preliminary CFP for 2026 to 31, and Robert, our Public Works Director, and myself and the mayor have worked through a number of these projects, and we've made some modifications from what Mike originally presented. For the budgeting process, the key year is 2026. That's where we're going to really incorporate that into the budget process. And the final years are somewhat of our wish list or projects that we're pursuing, federal appropriations, state appropriations, loans or grants. We also have in here the 28 comprehensive plan, which guides a lot of our direction. That is currently being updated, and John is working on that project. Next slide. So our strategic plan that council approved a few months ago, it stated some of the directions and our key priorities: connected community, a fun community, resilient community, a safe community, and an affordable community. So we try to keep those priorities in mind when we're looking at the different projects that we want to pursue. Next slide is our long-term financial strategy. There's some key principles that guide us. We invest in employees. We want to preserve our infrastructure, and there's some of these guiding principles that determine what projects we're going after. Next slide. It's very difficult to read up there, but I won't go through but sort of the guidelines of what we go through and consider before how we're funding projects, whether it's tax increases or, how we're going to fund projects, and to that end, how we're going to fund operations. The next slide, that is the process we're going through currently. We're now into October, where we're going through meetings and presentations to different committees and whatnot. In November, we'll go through additional presentations and fine tuning the plan. And then we'll have a public hearing and a potential passage of the CIP at the end of November, the last council meeting in November. This is a list of some of the projects we've completed this year. Of course, the Lion Parks Community Center is probably our largest project. I threw a cost in there at $7 million. We're right now working through the final progress payments from Nelson Construction to figure out where the total cost is going to be. We completed the crosswalks at the post office. We bought the two properties for the future downtown parking lot. Southeast 8th Street sidewalk program was completed for $900,000. We're working on the Northeast Rose Street pedestrian lighting project. That will carry forward into 2026. We completed the Lift Station 5 replacement at $2 million. We did the neighborhood sewer lining. If you recall, we got a grant to do approximately 10 years of sewer lining replacement that was completed this year, and also completed our well number 2 replacement project for a total of just over $15 million of completed projects this year. So the 2026 priority projects that are identified in this preliminary plan include potential land acquisition for the police station through the Walla Walla Library District. The Lions Park Community Center, a key project we have in there, $2 million allocated for demolition and start of construction. We are still working on funding for that, finishing that funding on that project. Currently, we're funded about 50%. But we are going after another ELF grant through the YMCA to get potentially another $2.5 million. And then, of course, Mr. Colton mentioned that a potential $1 million additional, which will get us pretty close. Currently, it's estimated at just under $8 million. Our goal was to get approximately closer to $10 million just to assure that it's fully funded. And, based on current inflationary numbers, we're expecting costs are going to go up. Under stormwater, we've identified the street decant facility. which is designs completed this year, and we do have a Department of Ecology grant. Most of the ecology grants, I'll tell you now, I won't go through every number, but they're typically 85% grant, 15% city match. Next, we have the Southeast Birch 4th to 6th project that is funded by 100% Public Works Trust Fund, low interest loan. The Streets project, the downtown parking lot at 1.1 million. We have to do design on that as well as construction, and that is funded by the tax increment financing, a bond that we got last year. Another streets project is our Safeway, Safe Walk College Place. We have a DOT grant of $3.3 million to fund a number of different projects for sidewalks. The big project for the streets is the Majornia Road construction project. Right now, we're trying to finish up right-of-way acquisition and then get into bidding hopefully by the end of this year so they can start construction in the spring of next year. That's at $9.6 million, and that's fully funded by a number of different grant mechanisms. The wastewater treatment plant is continuing their phase 1 A and B construction. We were estimating next year to spend 10 million of the I think we're about 5 million this year. So that'll be 15 million of a $26 million project. Under the water, we're wanting to do well number 8 development. They did the drilling this year, and you guys are familiar with the problems they've had with the volume of water coming out of it, but they have developed the well up to a point where they feel confident that it can supply, you know, like the school area off Teal Road and then also a new water tower. So they're planning on doing the well development there. And we do have a 50-50 Department of Health grant on that project. The other project, of course, that has been mentioned by Mr. Colton, the Reservoir 4 water tank. We have in the budget to spend $8 million next year. That, of course, will depend on funding components. And then the Reservoir 4 transmission main that goes on Majornia Road, that we have that funded as well, part through TIF and part through that WARDA program. So next year, we're anticipating on infrastructure spending, you know, just under $50 million. Next slide. Here's just a summary. I won't go into detail on it. You can see how for next year, how the components are broken out, and then for the 6-year plan. Next slide. 2026, you can see the individual components of where the spending is going to occur, and there's that close to $54 million in capital spending is anticipated next year. Of course, that is driven by supporting funding for the programs that aren't currently fully funded. Next slide. And then here's the breakdown of the cost in the 2026 to 31 CFP plan. $175 million. If you say it fast, it's not too bad. So we do have prioritization, and we've talked about this before, and it's important. You know, we still feel there'll be supply chain issues and potentially inflationary issues going into next year. One positive is we are seeing competitive bidding on a number of recent projects that have come under substantially under engineers' estimate. So we're hoping that will go forward and potentially offset some of those inflationary increases. The projects are broken down on the CFP by high, medium, and low priority. So again, all dependent on grants or funding mechanisms. Next slide, please. The facilities broken down into sections here. We talk about the facilities first. The next slide, projects administration, City Hall. I'm not going to go through every project at this go around because we want to get out of here in 6 minutes. But that detail is also in attached documents for the full CFP. You can see in there, we have for next year, there's been a medium need to replace our card system and have it consistent across the city. This project is funded by our utilities or our maintenance reserve program, and they're looking at doing engineering next year and then implementation the following year. And you can see we're looking at potentially doing a Sally Port conversion in 27 for $2 million. You know, we are running out of space. We didn't get the funding to do the complete office or city hall renovation. That money was through BRIC program. There was another program that were canceled by the new administration. So we lost our funding for that. So we're going to see about what we can get for funding. USDA is an option for that. So we'll see moving forward. And some smaller projects moving out. And we did put the, sorry, I didn't have the years above in the header, but in 2029, we're looking at the additional amount to renovate the entire city hall. Next slide is our fire and police department. The big projects. There are very few projects in the fire department. Just some. We have our contribution to the regional training tower that ends at the end of next year. So we'll have a $65,000 savings after next year moving forward. And then the fire station improvements, then renovate some dorm rooms and some furniture for $181,000. And then on the police department, we are going to seriously look at potentially buying the property where we'd want to put on the police station, which is that vacant property just what is that, east of the high school? Or north of the high school? North of the high school. Okay. Originally, we had talked about maybe doing a trade with the library district. Or not a trade, but working that purchase into a long-term lease agreement on the Lions Park Community Center, of which they're a partner. We decided interim that wasn't our recommended strategy, that we don't want to complicate a lease agreement on Lions Park Community Center with the purchase of land, and the decision, if we're going to do it, we'll buy the land outright. That will be, you know, an asset with a potential, you know, if we had to sell it in the future with a gain, so it could be a positive. And then we have the replace police department at $15 million in 2029. Again, that is dependent on funding. The goal there was to have enough funding in place that we could minimize the amount we go back to the citizens to ask for a bond. Remember last year we asked for, I think it was 14 million, and that was not approved. Next is the parks. Here, Lions Park Community Center is the main part. There, we have $2 million in next year for demolition and $8 million in the following year. Some other projects in the parks are being pushed out a few years due to our cost of Lions Park renovation was over budget, and we're going to have to use our REIT money over the next 2-3 years to fund the overage on that project. So not too many projects in parks in the next few years, unfortunately. The next slide is the infrastructure programs. First is our storm projects that we have. A number of projects in storm. Fortunately, most of these have excellent funding programs. So we have the state, we have the street waste decant facility next year at $2 million, which is funded by DOE. Southeast Birch, 3.4 million. That is low interest loan from the Public Works Trust Fund. And then a few other smaller projects moving forward. And you can see the projects that are are extending out. We have our outfall replacement program, which continues year over year, although we are not doing any next year. And yeah, you can see the projects there moving forward. Expecting to spend about $6.3 million in storm projects next year. The next is streets projects. We always like to bring up the fact that the only funding that we can get at a state and federal level is if we have federally classified roadways. Mike did an excellent job at getting as many roads classified as possible. The only other form of funding is through reserves. And last year, you all approved the 0.1% transportation benefit district tax, and that's bringing in about $350,000 a year. Hopefully that goes up as development goes up, of course, and as your sales tax goes up, you'll have more revenue into that area. So in the first next slide, please. You can see in the very first, a block resurfacing chip seal program, which is something we do every year. We have typically we have a little more money in the buckets. Next 3 years, we only have the amount coming from TBD. We also use our REIT 1 money that will come in play at 3 years. Once we're going to use that REIT money to pay down you remember you approved a loan for $1.5 million at the end of last year to help fund the Lion Spark project to keep the REIT fund liquid. So that will be paid back over the next 3 years using the REIT funds. And then the downtown parking lot, 1.1 million next year and 2 million the following year. I think the 2 million in the following year, I have to review that because I think the decision was not to go with a second parking lot, but I need to review that. That's funded by tax increment financing. And then we have our Safe Walk College Place program at 3.3 million funded by WashDOT grant, and then some other projects extending out. What we did do this year is historically, all the Safe Walk projects has been included in one bucket. We're breaking those up and extending them out as individual projects over the next 5 years, 6 years, 5 years, 5 years. Street projects continue on the next page. The major project is the Majonier Road project, expecting to go next year, $9.6 million, and that is fully funded. Also, we have the work on the proposed east-west road through the Stone Creek development. We did commit $2 million towards the the intersection and the road that goes up to through McKiernan's property. And the balance of that will be funded by the developer. Then we have a few other projects, Whitman Drive, the lighting project, which is funded $1 million next year and some wrap up the following year. And then some other projects going out further, the Public Works yard replacement and 2028 for 15.5 million. Of course, we're working on funding on a number of these projects. There's additional street projects that go out over the next 3-4 years as determined by a transportation improvement plan. So any project that on here is existing on our transportation improvement plan, and we have to have that in order to go after funding, especially with WashDOT and federal programs. Next slide is our wastewater projects, and that picture you can see is as our wastewater treatment plant project as it develops. Next slide. The main project there is the wastewater treatment plant. We're anticipating spending $10 million next year and then $5 million in 2027. And we are fully funded on that project. We're almost through our federal appropriations at $3.5 million in that project. So then we'll start to get into the Department of Ecology money and a couple other sources of funding available there. And then we have a sewer extension on Southwest Majonier sewer from Blueview to Teal. That's a priority project with design next year and construction in 2027. And then also the Central Avenue wastewater line project from Scenic View to Valley for $455,000. The last two projects are coming out of our wastewater capital reserve fund, which is quite healthy at that point. When you see the presentation of the preliminary budget on Tuesday, you'll see where that holds fact. The last is our water projects. You can see the water towers there. And the main project is our well number 8 development, which is funded by Department of Health 50/50 grant loan combination for $4 million. We have our water tower project. We are still working on funding, but we're anticipating that coming into place and spending $8 million next year and $12 million the following year in 2027. We also have our transmission main project for Reservoir 4. That is sort of connected with the Majonier Road project for $5 million to take water line underneath Majonier so it connects up with the water tower. We do have funding from that through WRDA and our TIF and some of the water reserves. Then we have our rehab of well number 3, which is basically an electrical generator with design next year and construction in 2027. And we also have our reservoir seismic retrofit project, which is funded mostly by a FEMA grant, $200,000 in design next year and $1.9 million in 2027. And a small project on our SCADA controls. That's the software that controls the water system, needs to be replaced, and you can see the detail of what's included in that. The water projects continue on the next page, and I won't go into detail on all those projects, but you can see one main one that we're looking at is having a well number 9 development, which we're putting into the plan. Because well number 8 came in at under our anticipated volumes, we'll definitely start to look at a potential replacement or construction of a new well number 9. And we're putting $6 million into 2028 to start that process. And then some other projects continue out over the years. And that's quickly it.
Good
I
job.
didn't quite make it, but
Now, I just want to be quickly clear, because like, go back to one page, there was a few times that it says can't, that's supposed to be continued, right? That's not,
sorry.
okay, I
Yeah,
just want to
I'll-
make sure, so
I'll fix that for the
there's,
next presentation. I don't know how that happened.
there's another one up there.
We both missed that one.
Can't, it just.
I just, right,
I know I couldn't do any more.
right. Don't ask for nothing more. Okay, there was another
That's a
page
slip
there,
up.
stuff that, okay,
And the headers too on the years. I'll get that fixed up for the next
Okay.
presentation.
sure.
So this is a preliminary. It'll come back to council. Mike used to take it quite often. I don't know your feelings on it, but at least one more time. We'll fine tune it. I know there's a couple other changes, but we'll bring it back to council for approval at the end of November. But then we'll bring it back in at least
Okay.
one more time.
Okay, all right, council members, any questions? Councilmember Lopez, nothing. Councilmember Cleveland, nothing. Councilmember Espinosa?
Just a very brief question, on the, Brian, on the police lot that you want to buy. That's $800,000. My question is, was an appraisal done on that lot?
Yes, there was an appraisal done a couple of years ago, but our due diligence will require us to do a new appraisal.
So that is subject to the purchase, the final purchase price is then subject to the appraisal findings.
Absolutely, and also funding.
Okay. That's all.
That'll come through in the budget process if we feel we can have we have the reserves to fund that project.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Peterson? Nothing. Councilmember Williams?
I assume that since this is the very beginning, that if we have questions or comments, we should forward them to the appropriate department head with copies to you and the mayor.
Or you can funnel them through me,
Yeah,
Okay.
I would suggest go to
Just
Brian.
send it
because
back.
I'm the one that'll make the changes, and I know there's already a couple changes, so we'll,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay.
Yeah, just go
I would
through
just funnel them
Brian.
through me.
You can CC me, but Brian's the one with the answers and that will make the
Well,
Well,
changes.
I'll get the answers, I know.
yeah.
I'm not an expert on the projects.
All right. And Councilmember Boyd?
I don't have any questions, but I just have to say that this report, looking at it and seeing $15 million in completed projects this year and knowing some of the pieces that we finally were able to close is a really fantastic year and something that you guys should be really, really proud of. So thanks.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right.
Back to
No questions. All right. So we are down to closing items. Is there any other business for good of the order?
We have a meeting.
Okay. Yes, Thursday from 4 to 5, we have a meet and greet here. What's that?
Did we get an invitation
Yes, there was.
through?
Email?
Your outlook, probably?
Yes, to your,
the city.
through the city,
The one
through
that
the
came
city
in.
email,
Okay.
to this, yep.
When does Friday start?
Friday starts at 8:30.
How well attended is that right now?
We don't have a quorum. There's 3 council members, I believe, that's going to be attending the council panel. And then we have the the department heads panel, and then myself and Dave, the panel, and then economic development's gonna be taking the 4th candidate for a drive around the city. So right now, we do not have a quorum, and we do not expect a quorum. So it's been already set who's gonna be in what sessions.
Yeah.
They had to get that done today, and so yeah, so there's 3 council members, and the questions were. Yep, so Sean was getting all those out.
Yeah, okay.
Wait.
I have to go, I have to come in here when I have time to have my emails set up, so I'm not getting them.
She was working on them. She'll put them on a list for us, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got them today too, so to look over for. But she was putting last minute questions on that could be asked, suggestions, but she wanted to ask me about some questions that whether to add or not.
So the 4 to 5 PM is for
Public.
public?
It's-
We're not doing it after working hours?
No, 4 to 5 is the public meet and greet.
Okay, because I've been telling everybody that they should plan to come in the evening.
Oh, yeah, and we've got it on social media, so Facebook, our Nextdoor, our Instagram, I suppose. And X, I don't know. So, and then do we have it on the reader board? No, on the reader, okay. And the press will be writing about it because we spoke today with both,
A lot of people won't be able to come.
yeah, so
Yeah,
that's the time,
It's more about the time.
sure.
So
All right,
I'll just,
yeah, if they can make it 4 to 5.
most of them work till 5.
Okay. So if there's no other business for good of the order, I now conclude the workshop at 8:14 PM. Thank you, everyone.
I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, we're gonna have to work on one house. You're only supposed to go to 7:30. And it's 7. You're only supposed to go right to 2. Workshop.
Well.
We get overtime.
Yes. But the expectation is that like hospitality has some issues with our. Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Right, so they go and make for her thing for her class.
okay. I still have them in, team classes. See you next time.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow morning.
I still don't have an invite, but I'll be here.
Oh, I
For
already said
for
that.
Friday. I just don't know if
You're
everybody else is
sick.
planning on it.
What?
I don't know, just make sure everybody else is planning on it. I don't know. Friday? No,
No,
for
he's talking about
downtown.
downtown and College Place.
Oh,
Okay, Councilmember Peterson, so you're gonna write Sean an email about the question.
yeah, I get some pushback at work, I know, so that would be, so that was.
What's vibrant? Oh.
That's my pacemaker.